Taking you to London now, anti-lockdown protests are erupting all over the place around there, across the pond. Demonstrations like this one are expected all over Europe today. Police trying to disperse the crowds and directing folks to go home, but a lot of them are mad as hell, and they say they're not going to take it anymore. So did you see this? California Governor Gavin Newsom telling his residents that he knows all about being a remote parent, even though his kids have been in the classroom in private schools since November. And Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, caught maskless on a plane. Now, he said it was just for a few minutes, but some calling the hypocrisy just plain wrong. Will there be any political fallout from this? Does it have anything to do with the recall effort in California? Let's ask Democrat strategist Kelly Hyman and GOP strategist Amanda Maki. By the way, we did reach out to Governor Newsom. He declined to join us, but we'll let you know if that changes at all. Amanda, first to you. I think Americans have just about had it with the hypocrisy of those people who create these dictates and then refuse to follow the dictates themselves.
I couldn't agree more. Look, this started with Nancy Pelosi, a maskless Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done in violation of California laws when every business was shut down. Democrat mayors and governors then over the holidays telling their constituents not to travel, not to gather, yet doing that very same thing themselves. But look, I think the thing that for voters is going to be etched in their memory is that Governor Gavin Newsom can't feel their pain when a single mom is trying to juggle her career while teaching her kids at home. You have the president of the Berkeley Teachers Union dropping his daughter off at private school, yet saying it's not safe for teachers to teach in public schools. It is hypocritical. You're right. And voters will remember that when they go to vote next year.
Well, Kelly, maybe before voting next year, I mean, what does this have an impact on the recall effort in California? Once again, I mean, it does remind people of when he was eating at that restaurant, despite his orders that other people shouldn't do it.
Right. Well, we're going to have to see what the California voters decide. But if you believe in democracy like I do, it's up to them. They're get out and vote and let their voice be heard. But I think we need to talk about the more important issue is get our children back to school. I think that's really important. My thoughts go off to the parents that are juggling their job and taking care of their kids and teaching them as well. And I think that's really important. And that's something that is important for the voters. And we should think about that.
Well, and we just had a segment about it. In fact, we're thinking a lot about it here. Amanda, the bottom line, though, is that what happens to Governor Newsom and what happens to John Kerry is very different from what happens to average folks. I mean, we have many examples. For example, there was a family that was kicked off a plane because their 2-year-old wasn't wearing a mask. I think we have VO of that. He was asked to get off. That didn't happen to John Kerry. And then it goes even further than that. There was a woman in a Texas bank, another private setting like American Airlines, who was told to put a mask on in a state where it's not mandatory. Of course, she was in a private setting, a bank, just like being in an American Airlines plane. She was wrestled to the ground, this 65-year-old woman, handcuffed and dragged out of there, kicking and screaming. That's what happens to average Americans, not to people who are part of the political elite like John Kerry.
That's right. I mean, you know, John Kerry's been traveling on his private plane for so long, he's forgotten that he has to wear a mask even if he's sitting in first class. But really, I lay the blame at American Airlines for not picking up on this and not doing anything about it. And their response has been, we'll look into this. I'm sure if someone was wearing a MAGA hat or any type of conservative paraphernalia, they would have been treated very differently, just like you said. This is the hypocrisy that people can't stand. And unfortunately, this has been on show with the Democrats now for the last year.
Kelly, there have been moments, and I think of the Tea Party movement that happened and really did affect the 2010 midterm elections kind of dramatically. Do you think that we are approaching a moment like that where the midterms coming up in 2022 are going to be affected by the dissatisfaction of Americans with this kind of elitism that they find with the political class?
I don't believe so. I think what's important for the American people is what Biden is doing, the American relief, what he packaged that he put together to help the American people, to put food on the table, to help businesses, small businesses that are struggling personally, professionally, financially, and that Americans support that. I think that's what's going to be important to the American people, to have that.
Well, Amanda, it is true. Americans supported overwhelmingly this $1.9 trillion of spending. But there does get something very deep in the craw of Americans when they see the political class operating in a way that doesn't befit an average American. It certainly doesn't justify some of the rules that have been made for the rest of us, right?
That's right. I mean, this is the hypocrisy that people can't stand, and we've seen it over and over again. And it's almost been exclusively among the Democrats in leadership, like Nancy Pelosi. There are so many examples where she has said one thing and done another, as have other Democrats. Yeah. And this is what voters can't stand. They can't stand to be treated any differently just because they're not part of, Democrat leadership the way that Nancy Pelosi and others have.
Okay, we got to run. But as Kelly said, we are a democracy. We're a republic, a democracy, and we will have elections to sort all this out coming up more sooner rather than later, as a matter of fact. Kelly, Amanda, good to see you both. Thank you for being here. Well, JetBlue may be flying south for good. Is this a lesson for states that are charging high taxes up north? We'll take that on coming next.
We made USAA insurance for members like Kate, a former Army medic made of the flexibility to handle whatever Monday has in store and tackle 4 things at once. So when her car got hit, she didn't worry. She simply filed a claim on her